Good evening, this is Nigel Gray talking from New Zealand, and I have Rick Duarte here from Weather Wars International, and we have been working together for quite a while on various issues, international issues and so forth. And Rick has done a lot of research into the weather wars and the use of weather as an environmental weapon. And this evening we are going to talk about earthquakes. And so with no further ado, I will hand it over to Rick, and he can let us know what's happening. Rick.
Yeah, good show, Nigel. That was a good introduction. Now, with regards to earthquakes, let me elaborate on that just a second. We're not talking just about earthquakes in general. We're talking about man-made earthquakes. Now, that may come as a surprise or be something very strange to a lot of individuals who are not familiar with the subject matter. But man-made earthquakes have been going on for a very, very long period of time. One of the things I'd like to first do is to verify what I'm talking about. Okay? Now, by verifying, what I like to do is take one of the books. Hopefully, the audience will be able to see this.
Yeah.
Okay. This is Alana Freeland's book. It's called Chemtrails, HAARP, and the Full Spectrum Dominance of Planet Earth, which was published in 2014 and was a best-selling book of all time on the subject matter with regards to weather wars and HAARP. Now, in her book, she has devoted a chapter just to man-made earthquakes. So obviously, I am not making this stuff up.
Right.
I have read her book from cover to cover. I have placed, several post-its throughout her entire book with regards to with different types of weather warfare. And one of the areas that I concentrated on was earthquakes, man-made earthquakes specifically. Now, before I go any further, what I'd like to do is regress just for a moment. And what I'd like to do here is dedicate this first YouTube video to my late wife who passed away in March of this year. Now, Lynn, my wife, was not a what you would call a interested party in what was going on in the world. Her life was involved more in her family, her children specifically, and her grandchildren, and her extended family. But she supported me. She knew when I wasn't taking care of her during her time where she was dying of cancer. She backed me up. She never made any waves. And so, therefore, I'm dedicating this video to her.
Okay.
Now, okay, good. Now, secondly, I would like to thank Jason. Now, Jason does not want his last name to be known. which is fine with me, even though I know his last name. Jason has helped both Nigel and myself tremendously in creating the logo for our YouTube channel, as well as the introduction.
Yeah, he did an awesome job.
Oh, he did an incredible job. Absolutely incredible. I've watched, I can't tell you how many times I've watched that introduction that he's done. It's just amazing. You know, Kiwi, I'll tell you what, buddy. You know, when you made friends with Jason, you made probably one of the best friends of your entire life. This guy is absolutely gifted, and I can't thank him enough for helping us out with our, you know, with the introduction and with the help, no doubt, that will go on here in the future with our YouTube channel. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah, really, he's done a fantastic job with it, and he just reached out and offered to help. So, you know, complete, you know, all, how do you say, you know, congratulations, that's the wrong word. I can't think of the word. Yeah.
I can't think of the words either. I mean, the guy is remarkable. If it wasn't for Jason, I would have actually. Here's the truth of it. I actually, prior to Jason to coming on board and helping us out, I reached out to Dominic Mamera. Now, Dominic Mamera is the Weather Wars International Hall of Fame member.
Yep.
He also in relationship with Jim Lee, who is also a Weather Wars International Hall of Fame member. They together run and operate Weather Modification History.com. And they document literally weather modification over the past 100+ years. So I'll give them a big shout out and a big applause for the work they've done. They've not only helped educate me, they've helped educate others. But I reached out to Dominic to have him design our logo and our introduction, which he was more than glad and happy to do. But Jason beat him to the punch.
Well, good.
Yeah, we went with that, and I asked Dominic what he thought, and Dominic was blown away.
Ooh, all right.
Yeah, he gave big time kudos on that. Okay, so
tell us about man-made earthquakes.
Oh, now, as I mentioned, man-made earthquakes. I do not make this stuff up. First of all this is documented. It is backed up by evidence. It is factual. Now, anybody who wishes to contest this needs to do their own research and prove me otherwise, as well as Alana Freeland. Okay?
Yep.
Now, in her book, Chemtrails, HAARP, and the Full Spectrum Dominance of Planet Earth, she, like I said, she takes an entire chapter devoted to the subject matter of man-made earthquakes. Now, what I'm going to start with is something that comes very close to your home, Kiwi, and that is the Christchurch earthquake. Let me see where this is. Hold on. Magnitude 6.3, February 22nd, 2011, that killed 185 people.
Yep.
I know you know about that, Kiwi. Is there anything you'd like to say on that before I continue with some of the information that I have to spread on that?
Well, there is a lot of evidence, a lot of stories, and when I say stories, I don't mean stories. I mean factual lines on different subjects that have gone into this whole event. There were the Israeli spies that were caught, if you like, that were found in Christchurch at the time. There was the US diplomats leaving Christchurch 2 hours before. There was the mysterious death of Alan Hubbard, whose South Canterbury finance company was taken over and then collapsed. There are all these stories that are all connected to this, and so yeah, go ahead and say what you say, but yeah, certainly and another thing I wanted to say was that I went down for a week and spent a week down there on the cleanup effort, and so I saw firsthand what had happened, and even while I was there was a lot of quakes going on, and you went to bed at night, wondering when there was another quake, wondering, is this going to be another big one? And it really started getting you real twitchy. Now the residents of Christchurch who were living there and lived right through that, I only spent a week there, but they experienced thousands of, at least hundreds of earthquakes over that period of time. And I can tell you this, is that I read a story that the local primary schools, it's very interesting that the local primary schools were found that after the earthquake, there was a certain age of kid that if anything happened at school, they would wet their pants. And what they found was that these were the kids who were in the mother's womb when the earthquake struck. And now they're having great trouble with them because they wet their pants anytime a surprise happens. And you'd think, oh well, that's not such a big deal, but this is a number of schools, not just one, and this isn't something that I noticed, it's something that the schools noticed, and they saw that these were the kids that were prenatal, that were in the womb at the time the earthquake happened. That was fascinating in itself. But please, I'm taking up time. Continue.
No, that's good information to know. I had no idea, Kiwi. I had no idea, and that's why I wanted you to participate in this video tonight, because here I am. What am I? 8, 9, 10,000 miles away. So I don't know what it's like to go through an earthquake in New Zealand, but I'll guarantee you, I know what it's like to go in an earthquake. And I know I've told you this before, but the audience doesn't know that back in 1994, let me make sure of that. Yeah, back in 1994, I was married. My wife was pregnant, but she was up in, I believe it's in Washington or Oregon in the United States, and she was doing some sort of seminar, and she was pregnant at that time. And I was living in Hollywood, California, in a 3-story apartment. Well, in 1994, a magnitude 6.7 earthquake struck California, almost dead center on Los Angeles. In fact, it was on Northridge, which at that time, I was living in Hollywood, was probably maybe a 10 or 15-minute drive from where I lived.
Yep.
Now, in Hollywood, living on that 3-story apartment, this happened exactly at 4:31 in the morning. Now, at that time, I was in this, like I said, it was an apartment, it was a small apartment, and I was coming out of the kitchen with my second cup of coffee when this earthquake struck. This is a funny ass story, I swear to God. And I say it's funny because it's from my perspective. Now, when the earthquake, and I've never been through an earthquake in my entire life. I've been an East Coast boy, living basically in the Maryland, Virginia area for most of my life. Now I'm in California, and the reason I'm in California is because I'm working with the Citizens, excuse me, I'm working with the Citizens Commission on Human Rights, CCHR, and I'm their, basically their media PR man, media public relations man. So my job at the particular time was to contact the media and get our messages out regarding various issues dealing with psychiatrists and psychiatric activity regarding, you know, well, pretty much that. I mean, what's the best way to put this? Crimes, psychiatric crimes against humanity. Okay? Now, I was probably the best damn, would you say, investigative journalist and public relations man CCHR ever had. Without going any further than that, let's go back to the earthquake. So, the earthquake struck at 4:31 when I was coming out of the kitchen with my second cup of coffee. When the earthquake shook, I had no idea what the hell was going on. I was pretty much dumbstruck. The room just shook from side to side, like you were in a, what would you say? I don't know if you know what a bouncy ball is. Kids playing them all the time. Oh. And the lights went out. The shaking continued. And I tried to make my way out the door. That never happened. Well, it eventually did happen. But on my way out the door, I had a little pantry, not a little pantry itself. I had a good-sized pantry where I kept all my dry goods on. Well, on my way out, that pantry fell on me. So obviously I had to push that off and make my way out the door and then all the way down 3 flights of stairs to the outdoors. When I got out the doors, it was still dark. I didn't know what was going on. Well, actually I did. I knew it was an earthquake, and I met several other people in the apartment complex as well too. Well, when lights started to show up a short time later, I started to laugh, and a lot of people that were standing around me thought I was absolutely nuts. But here I was covered in vinegar, mustard, and ketchup. Serious. I was perfect ingredients for a barbecue.
Sounds like a good Cheech and Chong skit.
Oh, I swear to God. Let me toke up one more time before continuing. Yeah, that is a perfect Cheech and Chong. You're absolutely right. But that's a true story. So I know what it's like to go through a major earthquake. I know you guys went through a pretty good one yourselves in Christchurch. But man, I'll tell you, unless you've experienced a magnitude 6.7 or greater earthquake, you have no clue on what an earthquake is really like. Now, I documented quite a bit of that earthquake in one of my albums on my personal page.
Yeah.
The devastation happened to Los Angeles, which I think most of the world knows about, was just absolutely horrendous. We had highway freeways that collapsed. People died. We had numerous buildings, homes that were just literally crushed to death. In fact, I don't even know what the death toll ended up being after that earthquake.
Yeah.
So it's mind blowing. And to think with that, well, for those who have never been through one, I hope you never have to go through one. That's what I have to say in regards to that. Now, are we ready to move on from there, Kiwi?
Go on, we're chomping at the bit here.
Take the words out of my mouth. I've been waiting for this for days. Okay, now, many of our viewers are familiar with the pinned post that I have on Weather Wars International. It hasn't budged in nearly 2 years that Weather Wars International has been established. And in that pinned post, it says, Mother Nature is no longer in control. Now, I want to take a minute or so and elaborate on exactly what is said in there. Because some people will and some people won't. Check it out. But this is important to this video that we're doing here tonight.
Okay.
It's whatever man. Hold on. Let me get this in front of me where I can get some good light. Whatever Mother Nature has delved out in the past, man has the technology and the capability of making it 100 times worse. And I mean that literally. Over 20 years ago, on April 28th, 1997, the United States Secretary of Defense, William Cohen, proclaimed, in quotes, others are engaging in eco type of terrorism where they can alter the climate, set off earthquakes, volcanoes remotely through the use of electromagnetic waves, unquote. Now, countries, well, specifically Russia. Well, unbeknownst to a lot of people, it wasn't only Russia. What it was the United States. Now, as I said further, what Cohen failed to clarify was those other countries, unquote, involved in creating these type of weather wars, volcanoes, earthquakes, floods, directed energy weapons fires, which the mainstream media calls wildfires, which I'm not going to get into tonight. That's another subject entirely in itself. And that's going to be another epic program. But what he failed to do is tell the public that the United States is also involved in earthquake terrorism. Now, when I say earthquake terrorism, yeah, it's earthquake terrorism. As an example, and I'll use this briefly, Iran is on the United States shit list. There's a lot of political and geopolitical reasons for that, which if anybody who's been tracking geopolitical news for any length of time knows. The only reason Iran is a problem is because it's a problem for the United States. The United States hasn't conquered it, like the Roman Empire, it hasn't conquered England. It did, 500-600 years ago. So Iran is a nation that needs to be conquered. And that's a shame. And it's a real shame. Moving on. As a side note, aside from earthquakes, the United States holds the most U.S. patents on weather modification in the world. And this dates back over 70 years. Earthquakes are included in them.
Yep.
They even have U.S. patents on how to create earthquakes and where to put earthquakes at. I'm not going to go into any detail on that tonight, on that particular subject. All the evidence I have, I've published before on Weather Wars International in the past, and if anybody wishes to review that evidence, they can contact me directly, and I'd be more than happy to support that information to them. Now, with Christchurch already spoken of and elaborated on, a few other earthquakes that need to be mentioned in Alana Freeland's book, Chemtrails, Art, and the Full Spectrum Dominance of Planet Earth, is the other earthquakes aside from Christchurch that took place in 2011 is probably the most unknown. Sichuan, China earthquake, May 12th, 2008. That was a magnitude 8.0 earthquake. That earthquake alone killed over 90,000 people.
Whoa.
Yeah. That was devastating. That was documented in that chapter in Alana Freeland's book in great detail. Now, I've also got videos on that as well, too. So if anybody wants to see those videos or any of those pictures, I'm more than happy to show them if they wish. Now, the next earthquake I'd like to talk about happened in the Caribbean. This is back on January 12th, 2012. Many people should remember this.
I do.
Yeah, it was in Haiti.
Yeah.
Haiti in the Caribbean. Now, what the hell is an earthquake doing in Haiti, in the Caribbean? You don't have earthquakes in the Caribbean, per se, okay? If you do, they are very minor, and they are never talked about. They are never mentioned in even the slightest of news. And I cover a lot of news. You know, on a daily basis, I scour through literally dozens of websites that may or may not cover weather warfare type of issue. And I'll guarantee you, Haiti reached around the world and impacted every single country and every single person who ended up seeing about that. Now, in the Haiti earthquake, it was a simple, when I say simple, it was a magnitude 7.7, which is rather large. But people have to realize in Haiti is not a developed country. It is very rural. People still live in what we would call here in the United States and New Zealand. Basically, they live in man-made shacks, which is fine. I have no problem with that. You know, whatever protects you from the elements and keeps you and your family, protected, that's okay with me. I have no problem with that. If I didn't have what I have today, I would have no problem living in a shack. Hell no, As long as I had food and water and good company, that's really all that matters. But these poor people were just annihilated.
Yep.
Absolutely annihilated. And probably the saddest part is, let me take off my glasses. That 7.0 earthquake, and I'm getting choked up on it as I speak about it. That 7.0 earthquake killed over 500,000 people. 500,000 people. That was a man-made earthquake. So why did that happen? Well, one has to do a little investigation. Alana Freeland did that, and I went right behind her to check out her sources and the information, and I found out the same thing. Why did it happen? Well, Haiti, like New Zealand, did not want to cooperate with the United States policy. If you don't cooperate with the United States policy, there are consequences. I'm not saying it's always earthquakes. I'm not always saying it's tornadoes or any other type of weather war-related events. I'm just saying there's going to be consequences. In Haiti's particular case, it was an earthquake. Now, I just want to take this one step further. When this earthquake struck Haiti, obviously there was emergency relief, a lot of emergency relief. The United States Red Cross came in, as well as other countries, helping out with food, water, shelter, first aid, medical, treatment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Unbeknownst to people, one of the, what do you want to say? One of the organizations that was behind, quote unquote, helping out Haiti was the Bill and Hillary Clinton Foundation.
Yep.
Now, oh my God, here we go. You talk about criminal activity? Yes, there is definitely criminal activity here. And I say that because they asked the public to contribute to the organization so they could help out Haiti. It was a total scam. They literally scammed millions and millions of dollars from the public worldwide and put it in their pockets. That's not okay. That's not okay. I won't take that any further than that. I'll let the audience determine for themselves what they think about that whole situation. Now, moving on from Haiti, I've only got two more to cover here.
Okay.
One. Okay?
Yep.
Now, the other earthquake was the one which is referred to as the Toshuku, Japan earthquake of March 11th, 2011. A lot of people know that better as the Fukushima. For 11th, 2000. Ironically, the United States had, if you will, their own 9/11, 9/11, okay? September 11th, 2011. And when I said ironically, well, the emergency number, you have an emergency, like a fire, you have a health issue, you call 911 here in the United States to get some response, okay? Now in Japan, their emergency response number is 311. So when they have some sort of emergency, they call 311. So it is, isn't that very interesting that this 9.0 earthquake took place on 3/11/11.
Crazy.
Yeah, crazy. So that, that's a clue in just giving you intention that there was a message sent. And why was that sent? Again, Japan did not want to comply with U.S. policy. I live in the United States. I love the United States and all its people. But more than anything else, it's the government that I despise. And it's not only the government, it's also the U.S. military behind it as well, too. It's despicable, at least. I have devoted another website called U.S. Government Crime Exposed. And I've been documenting for over 2 years all the crimes the U.S. government and the U.S. military has done over the past 100 years.
Just to let people know, that's a Facebook page.
Yes, thank you very much. It's a group website, Facebook page.
U.S. government corruption.
Oh, God.
What's the name of it?
It's called U.S. Government Crimes Exposed.
U.S. Government Crimes Exposed. Okay, good.
Exactly. And I wish that was as big as Weather Wars. I really do. But, you know, like everything else, Weather Wars International start off with 2 people. That was me and you.
Yep.
And here it is, not even 2 years later, we've grown from 2 people to over 14,600 members. And by the time of our anniversary, on September 1st, I have no doubt in my mind that we'll be well over 15,000 members. And the reason I say that is because Weather Wars International is growing at a rate of between 400 and 600 members a month. That is absolutely outstanding.
I
don't know of any other.
I think what's more significant about that is that the members of Weather Wars International are just that, international. They are from all over the world, and so the word is getting out. The word, you know, the message is getting out to countries all over the world.
That's exactly right. I'm glad you brought that up, Kiwi, because I know I would have forgotten to say something about that. When you talk about international, and every country, I mean literally every single country, with the exception of only that I've been able to, what do you want to say? There's only 2. And I can't tell you why, but maybe the reason is obvious when I mention those 2 countries. I have not gotten any members from China, nor have I gotten any members from Japan. And I find that very interesting.
Yeah.
Very, very. In my mind, I think there has to do with a little bit of suppression of the news in those countries, for whatever reason. Okay? But I have no doubt in my mind, in the future, those countries will be represented by Weather Wars International members. At least that's what I'm hoping. Okay? Because if we know what's going on in their countries, they need to know what's going on in their countries. They need to come out of the dark. They need to be enlightened. The world is not peaches and cream, if you will.
That's for sure.
Okay, good. Now, the last one I want to talk about.
I would say the world is more like a burnt roast dinner.
For sure. I can see the smoke in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Okay, here we are on the last earthquake. Then we'll wrap this thing up. Now, this is going to be memorable in just about everybody's mind, because this earthquake and tsunami just literally shook people's lives to the core. This was the magnitude 9.1 to 9.3 earthquake that took place on Boxer's Day, December 26th, 2004. Better known, perhaps, by the Sumatra, Indonesia earthquake tsunami.
Yep.
Yep, you betcha. Now, a 9.1 to a 9.3 earthquake is virtually unheard of. The only time in recorded history that has ever happened up in Alaska about, I think it was 150 to 200 years ago. The tsunami, the earthquake, it was at least a 9.0. Not only did the earthquake hit Alaska, but the tsunami just buried the west coast of Alaska, and the tsunami rippled across the Pacific Ocean and actually hit Japan. Now, how do we know it hit Japan? Well, in recorded history, Japan actually wrote this whole incident down, that they were hit by, what do you want to say, 90-meter high tsunami.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly, 90 meters. Now, a lot of people can't comprehend that, but in the United States, if you just take 3 times, what did I say, 90? 3 times 9, that's 270 feet. We're talking about a 300-foot wall tsunami hitting Japan.
Crazy.
300 feet. That's 30 stories. Go out and try to find a building in your neighborhood or in your business district that is 30 stories high. Then you'll get the idea of what that was all about. Now, I was not able to determine how many people that killed in Japan, but I know in Alaska, it killed some 20,000 people. Now, that part of Alaska is not that well populated. But if you have a 300-foot tsunami that hit Japan, you can imagine that there was more than a handful of people that were killed during that tsunami during that time. Now, that was not man-made. That was Mother Nature. Today, Mother Nature can duplicate that, and it would not surprise me in the least if they do that anytime today. And that's the scary part. And there's a lot of different scenarios that they can use to make that happen. One is off the west coast of California, Oregon, and Washington, which is known as the Cascadia subduction zone. That's where the Pacific plate goes under the North American plate. There's been a few shakes over the years. If that thing jolts, the entire west coast, from the state of Washington, Oregon, down to California, is not only going to be shaken to its core, and there's going to be great devastation, but there's going to be a tsunami of biblical proportion. We won't talk about hundreds of people being killed. We won't be talking about hundreds of people being killed. We'll be talking about millions of people being killed. And that's no laughing matter. All the U.S. military has to do is use the electromagnetic waves and push those waves down into the Earth crust. Wham! There you go. Now, the other is, I want to bring up one of those second scenario is out in the Canary Islands. This is off on the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Portugal.
Okay.
Now, there are a group of islands out there, and I apologize, I forgot the name of them. But there's a group of islands out there that one of those volcanic islands has slipped in the past, 500 years ago, and has caused a tsunami. A number of experts, specifically scientists, say that at any time that volcano or half the volcano could slip into the Atlantic Ocean. If half that volcano goes in the Pacific Ocean, you have got another 300-foot tsunami that'll hit the east coast of the United States. That means from the northern port, New Hampshire of the United States, good Lord, all the way down to Florida, cover the whole eastern seaboard of the United States.
Right.
Will literally be wiped out for at least 100 miles. And keep in mind, 2/3 of the U.S. population lives on the East Coast. That is a frightening future. And to not only think that Mother Nature could produce it, even more frightening is if the United States and the United States military decides to use that against our country.
Yep.
Now, they did that with 9/11. The U.S. military, the U.S. government created 9/11. 12 Muslims in 2 airplanes not bring those twin towers down. That was a man-made directed energy weapon catastrophe. Okay? And if they're going to do that to our country, where they kill over 3,000 people, 3,000 people, I mean, that was just from the get-go. That has nothing to do with the mesothelioma that people contracted breathing the 400,000 tons of asbestos that were inside those two towers. They got cancer. They died from it, and they're still dying from it. Here we are, what? 17 years later? Are you kidding me? If they're going to do that to their own population, they'll do it again. Guaranteed. So that pretty much, just summarizing, going back to Sumatra, Indonesia, on that Boxer's Bay earthquake and tsunami. It was a magnitude 9.1 to 9.3. That earthquake and tsunami killed over 300,000 people on over 14 countries. Okay. So far my throat hasn't swollen up, and I've actually made it through this episode. Like I said, this is epic. This is historical. This will last 100 years in memories of every person who watches. Go ahead, Kiwi.
Yeah. Now, I was very polite not to mention that we went well over time on this, of what our plan was. However, there is something I wanted to say, and
Sure.
I don't know whether I posted to you, I messaged to you, or posted anyway, tagged you to something, but I saw an article which wasn't very important in terms of it didn't affect a lot of people or anything like that, but it was a few days ago. There was a post from Pakistan. It was a Pakistani news website, and they were talking about a Russian company who are doing have been contracted to do weather modification in Pakistan. And so this was just a matter of a fact article. It wasn't a conspiracy theory or some sort of activist talking about or anything like that. This was just discussing what they're doing. And they were saying in that article that the company was the same company that had done weather modification in the UAE, United Arab Emirates, and caused a cyclone there. And that this, and further on the article, they also mentioned that one of the ways that they do weather modification is to use electromagnetic waves to shift clouds around. Now, this was a mainstream article talking matter of a fact and stating that this weather modification company are using electromagnetic waves to shift clouds around. So I rest my case on that. Is that, anyone who says it isn't true, it isn't happening and all that, we're not talking about conspiracy, we're not talking about theory. This is already openly being discussed on mainstream media as a way of weather modification. End of story.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. A lot of people don't have the time to do research that I do, or even you do. Okay? And I understand that. I appreciate that. That's why I devote my time to presenting this information to the public at large. Not only locally, but internationally as well, too. People have to be informed. They have to know what's going on in their environment. They have to be informed and know what's going on. It's as simple as that. Now, with regards to weather modification, weather warfare, there's only 4 countries which qualify as the primary countries that have the technology and use the technology to conduct weather warfare anywhere on this planet. First and foremost, based upon evidence over the years, is the United States. Now, whatever the United States has, Israel has. So Israel is the next benefactor of United States technology. Backed up by that with Russia and China. All of those countries that I've just mentioned not only have the technology, but I can back it up with empirical evidence. Been going on for years, it'll continue. But the United States alone is first and foremost. If anything catastrophic happens on this planet, the first finger I'm pointing is the United States.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, it is. It is. And that's kind of sad when you live here in this country.
Yeah. So,
Kiwi.
yeah, I'd like to wrap this up. And there is one thing I'd like to say, that we are starting to do these videos. We have a new YouTube channel for it, and we are also looking at getting some donations toward the just running costs of being able to do this research, being able to make this available, and so forth. And there will be an announcement on that coming up soon. We just have to get it fully set up, and that's really about it. Any last last words you want to say, Rick?
Sure. There's just one thing, Kiwi. I think what you're talking about is setting up a Patreon
Yep.
donation website.
Patreon.
Where
yep.
Patreon, yes, where people can donate money to support us in our endeavors, and I'm presenting future YouTube videos on global weather warfare news. I can't begin to tell you how important this is to me. Now, with my wife's passing 3 months ago, good Lord, I know I need support. Okay? So, obviously, like everybody else, I've got to keep a roof over my head and pay the bills. And one of those bills is keeping the internet on so I can continue to provide you guys with weather war events around the world. Until the day I die, which will probably be about 100 years from now. I'll be here as long as I have a roof over my head, food in my belly, and the internet on. And of course the electricity to generate it all. So that's what I have to say. Please support us. We need your help, and we need to help you. Thank you very much.
Okay, all right, and just one last thing is, I thank you to all the existing members, and please continue to support us, as Rick says. Have a good night or day, as it may be, wherever you are in the world, and we will be back with more of these videos soon. So having said that, I will be ending off now. Au revoir.
Cheers.
Okay.